to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and it's been a week since we've last released a podcast, and I'll be honest with you guys, I did not expect me to do pretty much weekly podcasts on the League's Cup, but that's exactly what we're doing. But as you guys will notice, we have been bringing on guests. I guess that's the only difference. Every time that we've talked about League's Cup, there's always been a guest coming on the podcast. So you guys first heard from Kyle and Jillian Albany. Last week, you guys heard from Billy Myers. And now you guys are hearing from my good pal, who I've missed dearly in the press box. And hopefully he can say the same thing about me, since I've been missing the last two games. He is Skyler Hoffner. Skyler, how you doing?
I'm hanging in there. How about you, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Excited to... I am kind of excited to go to the game this Thursday, but then they said it's an 8 p.m. kickoff against DC United. And I feel like 99% of the listeners, I know yourself included, all of you guys head north after the game. I head south. And the bad thing about weeknight games is once I get into Maryland, they start doing construction on 95. They close down all the lanes but one. And so I have a strong feeling I'm not going to get home until 1 o'clock, have to be up by 6 o'clock for work. It's going to be a rough one. So hopefully that does not happen. Hopefully, I'll take 12 o'clock, right? we texted about that, said, yeah, I would love to get home at 12 o'clock. Maybe that's going to be possible, but myself, I don't think so. But yeah, I mean, I am excited to get into the press box. And like I said, have you in there, because last time I was there, it's a little bit lonely. I told Mike Perea, I was like, dude, you got to come down here and sit with me, because Pablo Maurer from The Athletic was supposed to be there. I was like, okay, well, I know who he is. I've never met him, but I can strike up a conversation. He never showed up. And I was like, well, nobody's to my left, nobody's to my right. Mike, come on down here. So at least I had Mike, but I don't know. I feel like we're always next to each other. So hopefully that continues this Thursday.
Yeah, it was very lonely a little bit on Wednesday and a lot on Friday.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely talk about both of those games against Querétaro and Wrexham. Let's get straight into the news. All right, so we have a ton of news to get through this episode. This is what happens when you wait almost a week from podcast to podcast. And so we have a lot of MLS news to talk about. And I guess we'll start with Colorado Rapids trading midfielder Bryan Acosta to Portland Timbers. Next up, we have the LA Galaxy have acquired winger Diego Fagundez from Austrian FC. And this one I have some thoughts on. This is a player that I think massively overperformed last year for Austin. 6 goals, 12 assists, and 34 appearances in MLS for the club. 2 goals, 1 assist, and 19 appearances this season for Austin. Now, remember, LA Galaxy are in a summer transfer ban, meaning they can't go out and make trades outside of MLS with other clubs. And so for them to bring players in, they had to be players in MLS, or they could sign international free agents after the summer transfer window closes on August 2nd. And so by the time that you guys are listening to this podcast, the transfer window will be closing. And Diego Fagundez is a player that has a ton of MLS experience with New England. I think we saw towards the end of his tenure in New England, they just got tired of him not performing like he did in his earlier days. Remember, he signed a first-team contract with the Revs in 2011 at 16 years old. He's a player that's been around MLS for almost as long as the Union have been a club. And we saw last year, like I mentioned, 6 goals, 12 assists with Austin. And I would argue that, yes, Diego overperformed, but if you looked at those underlying numbers, and they talk about this all the time on Extra Time, that whole club did. Every single player for Austin overperformed their expected underlying numbers. And this season, we've seen Austin come back to reality. They get knocked out of CONCACAF Champions League pretty early on. They don't make it out of the group in League's Cup. They're not setting the world on fire in the Western Conference. And with a new sporting director in, they're going to move around some pieces. He's going to open up those books so he can bring in the players that he wants in Austin. And I know Union fans are unhappy that Austin brought in Matt Hedges from Toronto, which then really pushes Brendan Craig further down the pecking order. And some fans are like, well, if that's the case, then why did we ever loan Brendan Craig to Austin? And I get that, right? But here's the thing. And I've been saying this for how long now on this podcast? Brendan Craig's just not that good. He looks great against people his age. But when you put him up against professionals that have been in the game for 5+ years, he's just not at the level he needs to be. And the Union figured, all right, you go to Austin where they like to play with the ball. You're good with the ball, Brendan. There's a great opportunity for you to try to get first team minutes. And now Austin's out of League's Cup, and they're pushing to stay in a playoff spot in 5th in the West right now. And I think minutes are going to come hard for Brendan Craig in Austin, but we shall see what happens. Huge piece leaving Austin in Diego Fagundez. Moving on with that trade from Austin and LA Galaxy, the Galaxy on the flip side have traded Memo Rodriquez to Austin in a separate deal. And there's also going to be $300,000 in GAM plus an additional $600,000 in add-ons heading Austin's way as well. Again, Memo Rodriquez wasn't really lighting the world up with Galaxy. And this is a team that are in transfer ban, like I mentioned. They really can't make much moves, and acquiring Diego Fagundez meant that playing time was going to be harder for Memo Rodriquez. So he joins Austin in a separate deal and staying with the Galaxy. Once the transfer window closes in the summer, they're set to sign Japanese international center back Maya Yoshida. The 35-year-old spent 8 seasons with Southampton. Again, this deal will go through next week after the transfer ban ends, and Galaxy can sign international free agents just like all other clubs. Moving on to Inter Miami, because of course, Miami are not done making moves. They have signed highly rated Argentine winger Facundo Farías from CA Cologne from Argentina for a fee of $5.5 million. He will be a U22 initiative signing. Huge signing for Inter Miami, a player that's going to play on the left wing. But with a form that Robert Taylor's on, well, Facundo is going to have to win that spot over Robert Taylor. But when you're paying that much for a young Argentine, it's probably not going to take him long to break into the starting 11 with Messi. Moving on to the Houston Dynamo, they have signed Polish midfielder Sebastian Kowalczyk, and he's a player that plays on the wing and can also play in the center of the midfield for Houston, a team that's catching, I think, at least for myself, that they've caught me by surprise this season, just how well they look under Ben Olsen this season. I wasn't expecting Austin to perform as well as they have. They currently sit in 9th place in the Western Conference, 8 wins, 5 draws, 10 losses, 26 goals for, 31 goals against. And they're a team that, again, I think they caught me by surprise with how well they've played this season. And they add another midfielder to a team that already looks strong in the midfield. And now you add a former Poland youth international to that roster. That's only going to elevate your game. And this is a huge get for Ben Olsen's squad. moving on to the biggest news I think we saw on Monday was Lucas Zelarayan has been sold by Columbus Crew to Saudi Arabian side Al-Fateh. The 31-year-old contract's expired after the 2024 season. 42 goals, 23 assists, in 107 appearances with the Crew, was the 2020 MLS Cup MVP. And this is the first move we've seen from MLS to Saudi Arabia. Will this be the last? I'm not sure, but we know we saw the rumors that a Saudi club was interested in Hani Mukhtar, and then those rumors kind of died down. And Lucas Zelarayan was one of the best playmaking players in MLS. This guy carried the Crew in the 2020 MLS Cup final against Seattle Sounders. This guy's been a joy to watch. One of the best playmakers, like I've said, in all of MLS. And I do think this is good business by Columbus. I'm not sure what the reported fee is out there. I do know that Columbus in their press release didn't say it's a club record fee, which was set when the club sold Zach Steffen to Manchester City. Columbus got about $7 million. So the deal between Lucas Zelarayan and Al-Fateh is obviously going to be lower than $7 million because the club didn't put it in their press release that it's a club record fee. But regardless of what Columbus got as a transfer fee, I think this is great for the club. Like I said, a player that's contract expired after the 2024 season. You would figure he has a year, maybe 2 years left in his prime. And this is a chance for Columbus to get younger. There's rumors out there that they're trying to sign former LAFC winger Diego Rossi from Fenerbahce in Turkey. Will that move get done? Remember, the transfer window ends August 2nd. So by the time you guys are listening to this podcast, you guys will have a better understanding if Diego Rossi has signed with the Crew. And remember, too, just because the transfer window closes on August 2nd doesn't mean that clubs can't announce signings after that day. Paperwork just needs to be signed before the deadline. And so if the Crew announced Diego Rossi on the 4th, the 5th of August, as long as that paperwork's done before the 2nd, then he'll be a Crew player. And so I do think, like I mentioned, this is good business for the Crew. They get younger. A player that maybe has a year or two left in his prime. And yes, you're losing your playmaker. You're losing a huge player. But this is good business for the Crew. And this is good for Lucas as well. Can go ahead and, as they say, get the bag. And play a couple of years in Saudi Arabia. And make a lot more money than he would have made with Columbus. And then now him and his family are set for life. So I think this is a good move for all involved. But those are the latest deals done in MLS. But there was some news in Philadelphia Union land. And those were Philadelphia Union announcing the loaning of midfielder Andres Perea to New York City for the remainder of the 2023 season. In return, the Union acquire $300,000 in 2024 GAM. 3 goals in 11 appearances this season for the Union. Andres had. He only played 330 minutes. And this is one where a lot of people are like, well, what's the point of getting Andres Perea if you're never going to play him? And we barely saw him. And like I said, 3 goals this season in 11 appearances. I think 2 of those goals came against Alianza in the Champions League, if I'm remembering correctly. And I remember we got to talk to him right after the game in the mixed zone. And he was happy. He was confident in himself. And I remember I asked him, I said, do you think you should be in the starting 11 now? And he said, I don't know. That's a question you got to ask Jim. And then I feel like ever since then, he's been in the doghouse. So it's been a interesting situation with Andres this season, but at least the Union get something for him. And there's no buy clause for New York City. So it's just a loan for the remainder of this season, and the Union get free money next year. So all in all, not a bad deal, right?
Yeah, honestly, that's the best move for him right now. Jim just doesn't rate him right now, and he needs playing time to help regain his confidence. Send him off to NYCFC. Yes, it's NYCFC, but still, he might get playing time with them. And for $300K, we'll take it. We're getting something back from it. Marks down his money that we're owing to him this year. So I think it's a win-win for both clubs.
Yeah, and you look, I mean, it's just free money for next year, like $300,000 going towards the GAM budget already. A player where there's 11 games left in the MLS season. New York City, they're struggling. They have lost some players. They've struggled without a 9 all season long this season. There was reports out today that Maxi Morales is supposed to be coming back to the club after his club, Racing in Argentina, terminated his contract. New York City sit in 13th place. Can Andres Perea be that player to push them towards a playoff spot? I don't think so. But you're right. This is an opportunity now for Andres to get playing time. And it is interesting to me, too, where you and I both know how many times have people asked Jim, why isn't Andres playing? And he says the same thing all the time. You know, he's a good player, he's a talented player, but he never opens up. And as much as fans want an answer, Jim doesn't have to be truthful. And Jim's the type of manager where he doesn't want to throw his players under the bus and kill their confidence.
Yeah, I feel like early on in the season, especially in those CCL matches where he thrived, we asked Jim after the game, and he's a great player. But after that, we just don't hear nothing about him. We don't hear why he can't break into that, even off the bench. I don't know how he got into Jim's doghouse, but it's definitely an interesting thing that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, he's a player where I remember when we talked, fans and people on social media, where it's like, all right, we got Damian Lowe, we got Joaquin Torres, we got Andres Perea. And the player everybody was most excited for was Joaquin Torres, which makes sense. You know, he's supposed to be a skillful player, supposed to be that El Seno that this team hasn't had since he retired. And then the next player people were excited for was Andres Perea. And it's funny to me that a third center back has been the most successful player out of those 3 players that the Union acquired this offseason. And Andres wasn't getting playing time in Orlando. That's why Orlando made the deal. And I think all of us could admit, okay, yeah, none of us expected Andres Perea to get into the starting 11, but we expected a lot more playing time than what he's got, whether that be to come on for Ali Bedoya, whether that to be to play in the double pivot. If the Union were going to go to that, which we've seen them play 3-5-2 a lot of times this season, they've played 4-2-3-1 when they're behind. But Andres just can't get in. And it's really an interesting situation. And you look, New York City, they play 4-2-3-1. What did Orlando City play? 4-2-3-1. So now Andres is going to a system where he's used to being one of those sixes. And I think we all know by now that the Diamond's a hard formation to learn, where you're playing as one of those shuttlers on the 8. You got to learn those pressing cues. You got to know what to look for on the field. And maybe it's too much for Andres to learn. Look at Jesus Bueno. It took him how many years to get into the starting 11? And we'll talk about him here in a little bit. And maybe that's exactly what needs to happen with Andres Perea. I mean, I'm not ready to give up on the guy. Are you?
Nah, not at all. I think he can develop just like Bueno did. Like you said, it is hard to learn that right and left flank. I mean, see how long it's taken McGlynn to adapt to playing defense on that left flank. I mean, I feel like he's going to thrive in that NYCFC 4-2-3-1 and then come back here and hopefully provide something next year.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. We heard Jim say at the beginning of the season, Jesus Bueno came in super fit in the preseason. This is a guy who was deserving of minutes because of how fit he came in, how good he looked in practice. And maybe that's exactly what's going to happen with Andres Perea in the offseason. Now, I guess on the flip side, maybe Andres impresses so much in New York City. And yes, there is no buy clause in this deal, but maybe New York City hits up the union and says, hey, look, we want to buy Andres. And okay, they've already offered $300,000 in GAM for 2024. Maybe they offer another 5-6, and the union listened to that and said, okay, cool, we'll take that. I mean, you never know. So I think this is a win-win for all parties. It's an opportunity for Andres Perea to get more playing time. It's an opportunity for the union to have this player get developed. And if he impresses, maybe they sell him. If they don't, they have a player that can come in and maybe Bedoya retires. Maybe Andres Perea can try to win that starting spot in the offseason next year. So I do think this is a good deal. In New York City, they've had their fair share of injuries, and you would imagine that he'll get playing time. But I think that's what Union fans argued about Brendan Craig when he went to Austin, too, that they thought he'd get playing time. And it's the same thing that we've seen with the Union, just no playing time for Brendan Craig. But the last bit of news I want to talk about in regards to the Union, and this isn't official yet. Maybe it's going to be official by the time this podcast is released. But the Union are on the verge of signing 25-year-old Israeli striker Tai Baribo from Austrian club Wolfsburg. Was set to be a free agent at the end of the 2024 season. Reports were that Vancouver tried to sign him multiple times this past winter. The Union apparently beat out Atlanta United and Italian club Parma for his signature this summer. 41 appearances, 24 goals, 5 assists, 3,121 minutes played. And this won't be a DP signing. And this is what we wanted, right? We wanted a striker to come off the bench, and the Union finally got that.
Yeah, I'm very excited for Baribo. Just seeing those highlights of how dangerous he is in the box and how good he is in the air, I just want to see a little bit more with him with the ball at his feet. But from just those videos we've all seen online, he's a danger man.
Yeah, and look, nobody's expecting him to be a starter. Could he? Could he take the starting spot from Mikhail Uhre? Sure. But let's be realistic here for a second. And this is why I'm a little bit skeptical, because we've seen it the last couple of years. When the Union make summer signings, those players don't play. 2021, they bring in Davo on loan. Plays one game against New England Revolution and don't see him anymore. Last season, they bring in Ghanan center back Abasa Armia. Doesn't play. Richard Adada only plays in a friendly against Pumas with the first team. So 2 summer transfer windows, and they brought in players, but they don't play. So I'm a little bit skeptical that this could be the same situation with Tai. But at the same time, you got a player that scored 24 goals in 41 appearances. That's fantastic. And I feel like he's definitely going to get his opportunities coming off the bench. And I'm super excited to see it.
Yeah, he's had this full off season to prepare. Hopefully he comes in fit. Don't expect them probably to come in and produce like early, but by playoff time, hopefully he's available and ready to actually do something for the Union.
And here's the interesting thing too. So I compared his numbers to the Union's front three of Uhre, Kranza, and Gazdag. And like I mentioned, 24 goals and 3,121 minutes. So that's a goal every 130 minutes for Tai. Daniel Gazdag is the next closest, has 16 goals and 2,500 appearances. So that's 156 minutes per goal. Julian Kranza is next in line, 14 goals and almost 2,500 minutes. And it comes out to be 174 minutes per goal. And then Mikhail Uhre is not having the greatest of seasons with the Union. 30 appearances, 7 goals, 7 assists, 1,913 minutes, 273 minutes per goal. It's not great from Mikhail Uhre. And you add a player like Tai, 130 minutes per goal. That's pretty good.
Yeah, that's dominant, especially in the Austrian Bundesliga. That's pretty good. That league's not that easy from watching Brendan play in it. But you can't sit a guy like that. It's definitely going to be interesting how Jim rotates those three heading down to the last 11 matches in this season.
It's interesting to me too, where I see a lot of Julian Carranza in him. I don't know about you, but he's a player that arrives late into the box. He's a player that works his tail off defensively. And my question to you, does this signal that Julian Carranza is going to be gone this winter to you?
Honestly, yes, because I have a feeling that Tai could easily be jumped up to a DP after this year, and that's probably could be in his contract. I mean, we're not going to know that yet, but I could honestly see Carranza leaving, and nobody would be shocked at that. Carranza has proved that he is a top European striker, and he can go play with the best of them.
Yeah, that's why this move's so good, too, that the Union, okay, yes, they're looking at the team for right now, but they're also looking at the team for the future. And there's reports out there that he's going to sign a 3-year deal, which would be fantastic for the Union, just continuing to build for the future. We've seen Jacob Glesnes, Jose Martinez sign contract extensions. Now you bring Tai in, who's apparently going to sign a 3-year contract with the Union. It's going to be huge. So like I said, I mean, they're looking at building for right now, pushing in the playoffs, and they're also looking for continued success in the next couple of years. And I do think that Julian Carranza probably does get sold this winter. I mean, we've heard all the reports from Tom Bergert saying teams in Europe are interested. Teams playing in the Europa League this upcoming season have inquired about Julian Carranza. And nobody would be shocked, like you said, if Julian's gone. It's going to be a huge blow, but at least the Union are looking at a replacement and not scrambling last second, where teams in the winter don't really want to sell because that's when the European season's halfway done. A striker could be the difference of them getting relegated or staying in the league. And you've got to have serious money to tempt a team to part with a striker. And like I said, there's reports out there that Vancouver tried to sign him multiple times last winter. And his Austrian club, Wolfsburg, said no. And part of that reason is probably because, hey, look, we need you to fight and help us not get relegated from the Austrian Bundesliga. And now they have time to go out there, sign a new replacement for him, which I think I saw reports that they did bring in a new striker. So I think the writing was on the wall that this guy was leaving the club, and it just so happened to be that he's going to the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah, and like you said, winter, it's harder to get them. That's why you get a starter, a guy that can potentially start next year when you sell Carranza in the winter, and you can go get another backup bench player, bench striker in the winter.
And the good thing, too, is I was looking this up on my phone because I forgot to put it in my notes. So with Leagues Cup, the rosters were supposed to be submitted by Monday, July 3rd, and ending on July 11th at 11:59 p.m. Obviously, we've passed July 11th, and so I'm thinking, all right, well, he's not going to be playing in Leagues Cup. But then reading farther along on the Leagues Cup roster rules, it says on section 11.2, the player submission period due to injury, illness, or new player acquisition will be from Wednesday, July 12th, 2023 to Thursday, August 11th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. before the quarterfinals are played. We're not in the quarterfinals yet. We're recording this podcast August 1st. And reading further down this line, teams can register 3 new players before the quarterfinals. So it sounds like Tai is going to be able to play in the quarterfinals. Going to be able to play in Leagues Cup. Will he play this Thursday against DC United? I'd say 0.1%. Because, like we said, it hasn't been officially announced yet by the club. Reports were that he was in Philadelphia Sunday to take his medical. If you guys follow him on Instagram, which I think his account's private, so he has to accept your follow, but he put out a goodbye post to his old club. So the ball's rolling. And like I said, the transfer window closes August 2nd. But just because the Union don't announce a deal on August 2nd doesn't mean that the Union still can't sign him. The paperwork needs to be in by August 2nd. So if you see the Union announcing him August 3rd, August 4th, he'll be good to go. But yeah, I mean, that's huge, right? That it looks like, at least if I'm understanding the roster rules for Leagues Cup, that's huge that he'll get to play in this competition. Granted, if the Union are still alive in it.
Yeah, that's massive. And like I said, he should be coming off fresh, gets a couple of training sessions with the first team, and maybe he can come in for like 10, 15 minutes off the bench if we truly need him.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said a little bit earlier, I want to go back to that point. You said that he could be a DP next season, which is true, right? Because we saw Daniel Gaza came in at a TAM, and then his TAM hit kept going up every year. And then this past offseason, he signs that new DP contract. And we all know, because we thought, well, looking at his value at 2.7 million, I think it was, okay, he had a year left on his contract, so the Union definitely weren't paying that whole fee, but it could still be a significant amount. And if that's the case, he could potentially be a DP. But Tom Bogert said he's not a DP. And when I was looking at this, the Union, if Tai was going to be a DP, the Union had the option to buy down Daniel Gazdag or Julian Carranza. But they don't need to because Tai's a TAM player. But that made me think, right? Could the Union potentially offer Kai Wagner DP money? Because Kai Wagner was asked last week by Jose Nunez, what's your contract situation? Are you going to be here next year? And Kai said, it's not up to me. And I don't know if I believe Kai, right? Because we've heard him say how many times has Kai been asked about his contract situation? He's always said, I want to play in Europe. But maybe Kai Wagner and his agent are seeing that there's just not much interest in the top leagues in Europe. Okay, maybe the Belgium league or the Austrian Bundesliga want Kai Wagner. But maybe he says, I'd rather stay in MLS. And if the Union pay him DP money, could he stay with the Union, in your opinion? Would the Union do that?
For a left back to be a DP, it would be, he is the best left back in the league, but that would be hard for me to see, especially when the Union, if we are going to get rid of Carranza and Baribo isn't going to be a DP, I'd like to go get maybe another DP midfielder. But honestly, if Kai wants to stay and there really isn't that much interest and the Union can't make a significant fee in a transfer, I guess I wouldn't mind it if we can't really get another attacker in. You see, it's a love-hate because you want him to stay, but if he really wants that DP money, I would do it, honestly, in the long run. I probably would.
Yeah, he's the best left back in MLS. And I get where you're coming from, right? Because when you say DP, you want those spots to be spent on attackers. And so if Carranza's gone, that opens up a DP spot, unless Ty's contract becomes DP next year. It's possible. But you're going to have an open DP spot. And you would hope that they'd go out and sign another DP striker, regardless of them just signing Ty this summer, because you can never have enough strikers. And we just talked about Mikhail Uhre's numbers being down from last season. He's definitely not having the season he had last year. And, maybe bringing in another striker is motivation to push him. Like, look, dude, we know you have chemistry with Gazang and Carranza, but you're not getting it done. And here's a guy, if he comes in working his tail off and pressing, because obviously the Union saw something for him to get the deal done and beat out Atlanta United and Parma. And that tells me that the Union, one, offered more money to Wolfsburg, and two, they probably offered the player more money too for him to decide, I want to go to Philadelphia Union. And so I would argue Mikhail Uhre's starting spot's probably not a guaranteed when you're bringing in a striker that scored 24 goals.
Yeah, I would say his starting spot is not guaranteed for next year with or without Carranza, because I'm sure we're going to go out and sign somebody else because you just need it. And he has not been what he was last year this year. It's kind of frustrating.
It is. And what's even more frustrating too is he can't go 90 minutes. That's the worst. And if you have one of your strikers that can't play 90 minutes, you need a striker to come off the bench. And God bless Chris Donovan, but he's just not the striker that's going to strike fear in his enemy's eyes. And
he's not the striker we need off the bench.
No. And I appreciate the hustle. I appreciate his commitment to win the ball back and give his all when he comes onto the field, but he's no Corey Burke. And I don't think Ty's Corey Burke either. I think his potential is higher than Corey Burke. And I'm super excited by this signing. And going back to the Kai Wagner potential DP, I get it. It's a hard sell. You don't see many defenders, let alone left backs in MLS, become a designated player. So we'll see what happens there. But glad to see the Union making moves, and hopefully the Union can survive long enough in Leagues Cup where Ty gets to experience some of the Leagues Cup action, which we'll talk about that here in a bit. But I want to go to the most recent game you were at, Skyler, and that was this Friday's Philadelphia Union 2 versus Wrexham friendly. Game ended 1-1, and that's a game that I would say, looking at MLS Next Pro, the game we're streaming on there, seemed to be more Wrexham fans than Union fans. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it was probably like 70-30, I would say. Yeah, it was Wrexham mania, as they said.
Yeah, you saw a lot of red just spread out throughout that stadium. I even saw red in the river end, which I was a little confused by that because I thought one of the rules was you can't wear red in the river end, but I saw plenty of it. And I guess nobody enforced that rule. But what are your thoughts just on that whole game? Before the festivities, they looked crazy with the pictures that you sent me. Just Wrexham trucks, Wrexham everything, and you saw plenty of Wrexham jerseys just gathering around in the plaza.
Oh yeah, they had like beer tent set up. They had a band playing. They had somebody from the Wrexham staff just like talking, asking everybody all like Wrexham facts. It was pretty interesting. They had a lot of the normal Union stuff on the plaza, but it was Wrexham mania, as they said.
Did you get a chance to talk to any of those guys, or?
Nah, I got there super early, tried to beat the traffic. But yeah, I went up there and I took videos from the top of the Heineken deck, and it was all you could see was just red. And there was red Bale jerseys, which was even more bad.
Yeah, I saw that, dude.
Yeah.
Like, why?
Too many red Bale jerseys.
Why would you wear a Gareth Bale jersey to, I don't care if it's a Philadelphia Union 2 game. You're wearing that jersey at Subaru Park. Like, I don't want violence to happen to anybody, but you're asking for it, right? You were legit asking for violence to happen against you wearing a Gareth Bale jersey because you get enough alcohol in people, and people are still emotional from that game. You're asking for trouble.
Yeah, I seen about 3 to 5 Wales Bale jerseys and then one LAFC jersey.
And yeah, LAFC, wow. Well, that's even worse.
Yeah, and it was like right underneath the press box. Yeah.
Wow, dude. Yeah, I saw a couple people post pictures of Gareth Bale Wales jersey, but LAFC, like, you're asking for it. Come on now. Like,
you don't do that in a Subaru Park.
I get wearing a Wales jersey because Wrexham are in Wales, but you're wearing an LAFC Gareth Bale jersey. Wow. I wonder if anything happened to that fan. Like, I'm curious now. Like, did they make it out of the stadium safe?
I don't know. It was a guy I didn't see, but I noticed it right when I was sitting down. He was sitting right below us.
People had to be giving it to him. Walking to his seats, sitting around. Well, maybe not around him because it seemed like I said, more Wrexham fans, but definitely you got to park far away from the stadium, and you're definitely going to pass a whole bunch of Union fans. Wow, that's ballsy. That's
when I seen it, I was like, "You're a brave guy."
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Jeremy Raffinella score a beautiful free kick against Ben Foster. And this game also had a massive delay because of thunder and lightning, which, by the way, Skyler, for these people that haven't seen this, he captured a wild picture of, obviously, the bridge, because you got to have a mandatory bridge photo when you're in the press box. And then if you get a boat underneath it, it's mandatory that you take a picture of that. So you got those two things. But not only that, you got lightning striking someplace in the photo, too. My question to you, has anybody reached out to you about buying this photo?
No, I wish. Hey, come call on me. I'm willing to sell it. But nah, it was crazy. It was like an hour and a half into the rain delay. We're all just chilling outside the press box because, of course, they shut the blinds on us. So we're all just walking around. I go outside, I just see a lightning strike, and I'm like, I'm just gonna take my phone out and just take a picture because I see the big boat, like we always do. We take pictures of the boats underneath the bridge, and the second I snap it, I take a live picture. Boom! It looks like a lightning bolt just smashes the barge, but it was far away. But it was just when I seen it, I showed Larry Henry, and he goes, "Wow!" It was ridiculous.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit disappointed that the Union didn't retweet that picture. Like they should have.
I tagged him. I tried to tag him.
What's even crazier is like you didn't get any recognition from the Union, but you were getting a ton of it by Wrexham fans.
Oh, there were so many Wrexham pages just retweeting it and saying this is why there were in a rain delay. It was funny, but yeah, it got a lot of engagement, which is cool.
Yeah, definitely hit the jackpot with that picture, and maybe that picture will make some Wrexham fans follow your coverage and see what the Union are doing. And I don't know. I mean, like I said, maybe that goal that Jeremy Raffanello scored against Ben Foster, that free kick, what a strike, right? I don't know if that was like bad goalkeeping though, because I've watched that play so many times, and it looks like the ball takes a deflection off of one of the people on the wall, which I think maybe threw Ben Foster off. You were saying from your angle, it looked like Foster couldn't see at all because of the wall just being in his way. But nonetheless, I mean, it's a great goal.
Yeah, it looked like it maybe took a little deflection, and Foster was already going to his left no matter what it looked like. So I feel like he had no opportunity whatsoever. But that's just a pure strike by Raffanello.
What about giving Rafa some first team looks? You think he's earned it?
So me and Larry were talking about that in the press box, saying Rafa has had a phenomenal year with U2 right now. Hey, if Gazdag wasn't the player Gazdag is, I feel like he would be getting some minutes off the bench. But hey, you never know. Next year, if Torres is gone, hey, maybe. But yeah, he's a very young, talented player, and I wouldn't mind seeing him in that midfield at all.
And here's the thing, too, right? We saw Jesus Bueno spend most of the season with Union too. I think it was the leading goal scorer too, if I'm not mistaken. And now Jeremy Raffanella is the leading goal scorer with Union too. Maybe he gets his opportunity, like Jesus Bueno did this season. You never know. And if the Union decide to move on from Joaquin Torres, you're going to need a backup 10. Why can't it be Rafa?
It's cheaper, and he's in the squad already. He already knows the system. He can slot right in there.
How do you think overall, though, the Union 2 squad fared against Wrexham, a team that was, on average, 28 years old?
Honestly, if they didn't make a couple poor passes in the final third, I feel like they could have won that game or been up at the half 2-3-0. It stinks that they suffered a goal off a ball that I didn't think was out of bounds before the corner kick. But honestly, I think they played very well for being how young that team was. And they showed that they were honestly a better team than Wrexham, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So can you say that Union 2 could compete in non-league, potentially the English League 2, because that's where Wrexham are now. So,
hey, with the with the Quinn Sullivan, Donovan, and maybe throw McGlynn in there. Yeah, I think we could dominate them.
I mean, Wrexham's favorites, I think, to get promoted this season from Leagues 2, because that squad they had last year in non-league was definitely not a non-league squad with how much money they spent. Definitely not a League 2 squad with the money that they spent. Probably a League 1 squad. And Union 2 looked like they held their own against Wrexham. And I think, didn't their manager, Phil Parkinson, praise like the athleticism and talked about how Union 2 play good soccer after the game?
Yeah, and he gave praise to Andrew Rick. He said he was a very good, young, talented goalkeeper that has a promising future. And I agree with that 100%. He played phenomenal.
Yeah, he was
First
big.
time seeing him in person, I rate him highly.
Yeah, there's a talent. I remember talking with Phil Whiten at the coaching convention in January, and he was super excited for Andrew to get more opportunities with Union 2 this season. And that is part of the reason why the Union moved on from Matt Freese, because this kid's knocking on the door to get a homegrown contract. Definitely, if he was on the squad with an MLS deal, he probably would have played in those games that Joe Bendick, and maybe not all of them, but some of them, right? I think we definitely would have seen Andrew Rick at least once in one of those games that Joe Bendick had to play. And you saw him, a huge performance against Wrexham. And he's only 17 years old, I believe. He's still growing into his body, and he did not look out of place at all. He commanded his box well. His shot-stopping ability is really, really good. And I know Andre Blake's the Union's goalkeeper, we hope, for the next 10 years, because we know goalies can play forever. But Andrew Rick's supposed to be the next big thing.
Yeah, the play with his feet is what amazed me. Actually, he was very good coming out of his 18 to clear the balls off the line after we're having a high defense. Honestly, he's very good with his feet distribution.
And that's something that Andre Blake lacks. So could the Union say, hey, look, Andre, we need you to get better with your feet, because we've got Andrew Rick, who's already good with distribution out of the back? It's possible. It's possible, but no, I think Andre Blake's the number one goalkeeper for as long as he wants it here. With by the way, Andre Blake, you're a citizen now? Is he eyeing for a move away from the Union? Is it easier for him to go to England now because he's a U.S. citizen?
I'm happy for Andre, though. But, yeah, hey, you never know. But, yeah, I'm happy for him. Hey, maybe does he come to the U.S. men's national team? Nah, we wish, but yeah. Nah,
I know.
I'm happy for Dre.
Yeah, darn Andre Blake playing 60-something times, I think it is, with Jamaica, which, for people that are unaware, yes, Skyler's joking, because Andre Blake's played so many times with Jamaica, it makes him ineligible to make that one-time switch that FIFA allows players if they have dual citizenship. So no, Andre Blake is not going to be an American goalkeeper, but he is a U.S. citizen. And congrats to Dre and his family. But let's go ahead and talk about Philadelphia Union versus Querétaro. Again, another game that I was not at. The Union scored 5 goals in that game. They gave up a 1. And this is a game that the Union just absolutely dominated in. I didn't watch this game from the first minute to the 90th. I watched the whole game, but I wasn't 100% focused, I should say. I saw all the goals. I saw how they all led up to chances for the Union, but like being invested in the whole game, no. I'm not going to lie. I did not watch this game heavily. But what I did see, a hat trick from Daniel Gazdag, 2 goals from the homegrowns, Nate Harriel, Jack McGlynn. A lot of chances created by the Union in this game. What you make of this game?
Pure domination. I mean, the first 20 minutes were shaky at times, but right after that first Daniel Gazdag goal, it was under control from start to end. But yeah, Gazdag hat trick was perfect. He doesn't miss from the penalty spot. And what do you know? 2 homegrowns scoring a goal. Harriel getting up there in the box, and a beautiful strike by McGlynn. He wanted to strike it the first time he got it, and then he laid it off, and then he called for it right back again. You can't have a better strike than that to the back right post.
What goal do you think is better, Nate Harriel jumping over Damian Lowe or Jack McGlynn's goal outside the box?
Jack McGlynn. I mean, I love Harriel, and he got up there. That boy can jump. But that strike from McGlynn, he wanted it. Like I said, he wanted it from the first time, but he didn't have enough space. But that strike was beautiful.
Yeah, I was listening to his post-game comments in the mix zone. I don't know, did you stay for that? Jack McGlynn said that he's been working on that, like that little knuckle in practice where he shoots from distance and the ball takes a knuckle at the end. And that's exactly what happened with that goal. So, yeah, I guess the practice with Jack McGlynn's been paying off.
That's the first time I heard that. I was with Bueno at that point when Jack was talking, and we couldn't get to both. But yeah, hey, he purely showed it. Jeez, that was beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the worst thing about the mix zone, right? Is like they bring out usually 4 players, and they're only out there for a limited amount of time. And I heard that they kept it running which is good because against Tijuana, we waited 45 minutes after the game to not only hear from Jim, but the Tijuana coach, Miguel Herrera. And then it was around like 11:10, I want to say, before we got to go to the mix zone. And they brought one player out at a time. And then Amanda was like, yeah, all the players are gone. And then here comes Erica out with Andre Blake. I'm like, okay, this works because that's exactly the player I wanted to talk to. But yeah, we didn't get done until like 11:45, I want to say, is when I left the stadium. And I heard that's not what happened at all this past Wednesday.
Nah, it was quick. 20 minutes after the game, max. Both coaches came out, maybe 5 to 10 minutes each, and then mix zones right after. I think we waited 2 minutes at the mix zone, and Harriel came out.
Yeah, hopefully that happens this Thursday. Bad. I'll be pissed if it doesn't. 8 o'clock kickoff.
8 o'clock start. When you told me that this morning, I was very upset.
Like, I mean, I'll take 7:30. Right. And I saw some fans argue, they're like, why can't we get 6:30? MLB does it and they draw a crowd. No offense, TV. But I don't think people are going to be coming out. And that's the other side of it too. TV, that gives Mexican fans no opportunity to watch their club. But I know the Union, I guess it doesn't matter because they're playing DC United. But that's why these games are played so late. So fans in Mexico get a chance to watch their team. But yeah, 8 o'clock, not happy at all about that kickoff time. But is there any concern on your end? The Union have only capped 2 clean sheets in the last 10 games in all competitions.
Yeah, because I feel like the Union thrive when we get clean sheets. When we earn 1 clean sheet, we always back it up with another. I feel like last year, the past 2 years, Jim always talks about the 5 clean sheet rule, and they get a pizza party and beer. I feel like we haven't had anything close to that this year. But the goal against Querétaro, that was just poorly given up. It's like, I mean, you're up 4-0. I mean, you're just sleeping a little bit, but still, clean sheets win you games, and the Union, you just need to get back to that. Sometimes they have those mental slip-ups, and we just have been having too many of those this year.
Yeah, if I'm remembering that goal, it came off of a throw-in, I believe, where it's a slow rolling pass into the box. Matt Real gets caught flat-footed. He's ball watching. Jack Elliott gets out-muscled on the ball, I believe. Damian Lowe then has to come out of position and play the ball. And Nate Harriel then has 2 guys he has to defend. And that whole play could have been avoided. And they should have never conceded that goal. And maybe part of it is because the Union made a whole bunch of substitutions. But still, like, you're up 4-0.
Jack just got out-muscled. Jack got fully out-muscled, and that's one of the first times I've seen that happen inside the Union box. But yeah, the pass deflected. There was 3 guys on 2 by the corner flag. I don't know. I think it was Real was just standing on nobody in no man's land, and then Jack just got out-muscled. Yeah, nothing you can do about it. We were up 4-0 at the point. It doesn't hurt, but still, you want the clean sheet.
And I think you could tell the Union were pissed that they conceded because right after that, then Jack McGlynn gets his goal. So, I mean, credit to the Union for still finding another goal in this game, but it should have been 5-0. But look, the Union, you mentioned it, they were dominant in this game. 6 out of 12 of the Union shots were on target. 5 of those 6 shots on target resulted in goals for the Union. This is a super clinical team, and they continue to get results without their captain and Alejandro Bedoya, because Jesus Bueno has been stepping up in his absence. The Union have 8 goals in League's Cup, which is tied with Toluca for first. 11.5 shots on target per game, which is first in League's Cup. What have you made of Jesus Bueno's performance here the last couple games?
2 assists and a penalty drawn. You can't get much better than that for Jesus. He balled out, and he's shown that he can play that defensive side of the ball too, which is what Jim has been asking for on that right flank. But playing in that double pivot with Martinez, that is perfection. You can't get a better double pivot than that. But Bueno has overperformed this year, and that's great for the Union.
And I'm glad you brought up playing in that double pivot, because this is what Jim Curtin had to say about that after the game.
Yeah, I thought they did great. I think there is something to the fact that They're both from Venezuela, and they don't want to let each other down. That does matter. There's pride, and they know each other well, and they know each other's movements, and they complement each other well. So I thought they were really good together. A good partnership. I thought they were solid defensively, and then you also saw Jesus get forward a bunch, turn into tight areas, and really, break down Querétaro and really run at their back line, which is good from what's supposed to be a deeper lying six. He got really into the attack a lot, as did Jose. So good game from both of them. I'm really happy. And Bueno's playing really, really well right now. I'm happy for him.
Yeah, and he's earned every opportunity that he's been given. And every time that he's given an opportunity, he impresses more and more. And yeah, I know you said that maybe he's overperforming. Maybe it is a little bit, but it's starting to ask the question from me. And maybe you say this is a crazy statement, but do the Union need Bedoya starting once he comes back?
Not really. In my opinion, if Bueno can provide the attacking, he has been with all those assists and playing on that right flank alone, helping Mbaizo. I feel like he can start in that position. And hey, maybe he can fully take over that position next year. You never know, but he's been balling out for the Union.
Yeah, and playing with Jose Martinez as one of the sixes against Querétaro. Yeah, he looked fantastic in a role that is natural for him. And like Jim said there, both players got for it. Jesus is unlucky not to have a goal yet in the competition, but he has 3 assists, which leads all players in the competition. And I think it's only a matter of time before we see him get called up to the national team. And now we have 2 Venezuelans getting called up, which can be a little bit unfortunate for the Union if they have a game during the international window. And okay, well, you knew that we have Jesus Bueno to fill in for Jose Martinez. Maybe that doesn't happen now if they both get called up, but you'd love to see it for the player, and he's taken every opportunity that he's been given.
Yeah, and the Union love to have their players go to national team duty, so yeah, that's a story for another day, though.
It is, for sure. But the last thing I'll say before we wrap up the podcast is this Thursday's game. You guys have already heard from Skyler and I. Disappointed that it's an 8 p.m. kickoff, but we'll both be there. And the last 2 times that these 2 teams faced off in the regular season, DC United were able to keep a clean sheet against the Union in a 0-0 game. There were 4 stupid giveaways in the first half by the Union that led to really good chances by DC United, which Andre Blake had to make a couple big saves in the game. DC United sat extremely deep at times, forcing the Union to shoot outside the box, which they've been getting better at the last couple of weeks, so maybe that's not going to be an issue this Thursday. But it was an issue when they played in the regular season, I believe on a Wednesday. Tyler Miller was playing as that sweeper keeper, which meant the Union really couldn't play those long balls like they wanted to. And the Union just didn't look good against DC United. Do you see any issues for the Union this time out against DC United on Thursday?
Nah, I think we're just clicking right now, and I just feel like we can easily beat this DC team as long as we don't concede first like we have a ton this season.
Yeah, I mean, that's been an issue for the Union for sure. Conceding, giving up early chances, like I mentioned, it happened against DC United once this season. And Wayne Rooney is going to be preaching that to his squad. Hey, look, force mistakes from the Union like you did the first time we played them in the regular season. The Union aren't perfect. You can catch them sleeping, and to their credit, they corrected a lot of those mistakes that they had a month and a half ago. But it still does scare me that the Union could be forced to try to cover for those mistakes. Are the Union prone to those mistakes? I do believe so, even though they haven't really had any the last couple of weeks, and now I know I just jinxed them and watch the Union concede the first goal this Thursday, and everybody's going to be blaming me for that. But look, blame the team because of how often they've done it this season. But DC United's a team that's had a lot of injuries. They're going to have a lot of players missing this Thursday. Russell Canals, Wayne Rooney said after DC United's game against Pumas, won't be playing in this game. Teddy KDP won't be playing. Pedro Santos won't be playing. Their left back won't be playing. So they've got some injuries. We also know that O'Brien, the midfielder they had from Nottingham Forest, his loan's up. He's back with Nottingham Forest. So this is going to be a different team than the one that the Union saw back in, I want to say, did they play in April? I don't know. I have to look that up. But what are you expecting from this game?
I'm expecting an easy 3-1 victory. I think we go up 2-0 by halftime. We concede a goal, a poor goal, and then we exclamation point 3-1.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see the Union conceding a goal, even though DC United's not the greatest of finishing teams. 32 goals this season in the Eastern Conference, which is towards the bottom half of the table. Yes, Christian Benteke misses a lot of chances, but he's still a threat, especially in the air. He's a big, strong forward. We talked about Jack Elliott getting out-muscled off the ball. Could Benteke do that to Jack Elliott in this game? Absolutely. But with the form that the Union are on, with DC United having a lot of injuries, I do expect the Union to move on, but I'm not going to give a prediction. I know you love predictions, Skyler. Have one for this game? Goal scorers? I know you love that. Putting you on the spot, right?
Yeah, I'm hoping Ua gets back to goal-scoring ways. I'll say Ua, a penalty for Gazdag, and we'll go to front three, each goal each.
There we go. I'll take it, right? Would love a Julian Kranza hat trick against DC United again. I think we all would. But last thing before I let you go, Skyler, what are your overall thoughts on Leagues Cup? We've seen 14 red cards in the first 45 games. 11 games have went to penalties. It's been total chaos, man.
It's been mayhem from every team across Liga MX and MLS. But the games have been entertaining. The couple games when the Union haven't played, like I watched the Columbus Club America game last night. That was ridiculous. And Columbus pulling out that big victory. But yeah, I'm just happy that MLS is thriving against the top leagues in Liga MX. And hey, it's good for MLS that that's happening.
Yeah, it is. I mean, MLS teams have struggled against Liga MX teams. I do kind of want to put an asterisk against every win that MLS has against Liga MX because the games aren't played in Mexico. And we know historically MLS struggles down in Mexico. So it was a shock when the Union went down to Atlas and got a result because that typically does not happen. And I think Leagues Cup would be a lot different if these games were played down in Mexico as well. But look, here's the other caveat. Because we complain about how MLS teams, when CONCACAF Champions League is being played, Liga MX teams, their season's almost over. They're in form, while MLS is just starting out, and some teams haven't even played MLS games yet. And so these guys are super, super raw, super fresh, not in form at all, and a lot of times we see MLS teams struggle. And now we're seeing that from Liga MX teams, so maybe it all balances out, right? It's like, okay, fine. You want the Union and LAFC to play games in February in CONCACAF Champions League when their season hasn't started? That's fine. Now we're going to have you guys play Leagues Cup where your season's only 3 games in. And now let's see how you guys do. And yeah, we're seeing Liga MX teams struggle for sure.
Yeah, and I totally didn't even think about that until right now. Yeah, that's a very good observation. Yeah, hey. Yeah, we're showing them that once we're in form, we can beat you guys. We can beat your top teams. Our middle club teams can beat your top teams when we're in form. And that's what we're showing right now.
Unless you're the Colorado Rapids, but that's I have a lot of thoughts on how that organization's being run. But Skyler, it's been a blast having you on the podcast as always. And where can people find you on social media?
My personal Twitter is skyhoff_3, and I'm at every Philadelphia Union game, and I tweet on PHL Union Nation.
Yeah, this guy really is at every single Union game. I did not go to the Wrexham game. I did not go to the Querétaro game. And this guy, Skyler, he's going to every single game. So I applaud you, Skyler, because I cannot do it. I cannot get excited for a Philadelphia Union 2 game against America's team, it seems like, in Wrexham.
It was interesting to go. I've always wanted to go to a U2 game, and that was the perfect game to go to.
Was that your first game?
For U2, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've always wanted to get down to one, and that was definitely the game to go to. It was definitely interesting to see all those academy kids play.
Yeah, I've been to a couple games. I think the last one I went to was in 2021, I want to say. And the environment that you experienced against Wrexham is completely different than a normal game. Like, the stadium's dead. Like, you can hear all the communication from the sideline, from the field and everything, and people are just, like, vibing. Like, you kind of get lost in the feeling like, oh, wait, I'm watching a soccer game because it's just so quiet in that stadium. But, yeah, it's cool that you got to experience it, and looking forward to catching up, as always, on Thursday. And if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. And check out the YouTube page, youtube.com/freekickpod. Until the MLS season kicks off, we definitely won't have any goal breakdown videos. Sorry for the people that want those. Only want to make that an MLS thing for the time being. So maybe we get into more videos next season. But that's where you guys can find me. And you guys are slacking, I want to say, before we end this podcast. I asked for brand new people to come on this podcast, and nobody has hit me up. And I remember last time I did this, I had a whole bunch of brand new people. And some of you guys might be thinking, how do you know all these people? It's because these people hit me up when I said, who wants to come onto the podcast that I don't know for the very first time? And people hit me up. And now you people, I know there's a ton of you guys that are listening to the podcast that want to come on the podcast. You have thoughts. Maybe you don't agree with something that I said. And you guys aren't hitting me up. I just gave you the social media plugs. You can hit me up. We can arrange you guys to come on. We can talk about the DC United game if you guys want. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.